Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles, and be sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. Today, I'm once again joined by my No-Huddle Show co-hosts, Bob Brookover and Cayden Steele. The Eagles are won their fifth game in a row, coming off a dominating 34-6 win over the Dallas Cowboys, but they don't have a lot of time to dwell on it because on Thursday night they'll go face the Washington Commanders at Lincoln Financial Field. And we'll get into that game right now with Bob and Cayden. Guys, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Ready for that short week Thursday night game. First tip place showdown. Yeah, doing well. Should be an exciting game Thursday night. Very been a long time since the Commanders and Eagles have had a game of this importance. Although they've not, but they've never had a shortage of really exciting games. Both games they played last year came down to the wire, so it should be interesting to see Jayden Daniels for the first time too.
Yeah, definitely be good to look at. Cayden, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. Similar to Bob, I'm feeling excited about this game, uh, uh, especially with everything on the line. I feel like we've seen the Eagles play really well over the last 5 weeks, but we'll kind of figure out who they are, especially with the next 4 weeks of this stretch of tough games. But it starts with Thursday, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Nice, nice. And we'll get into that game in a little bit. But first off, I want to talk to you guys about where the Eagles currently stand right now in terms of the overall seeding and the playoff win. That win that they had last Sunday elevated their record to 7-2. And they currently sit second overall in the NFC. And we all know how important that top seed is going to be, which is currently held by the Detroit Lions, because A, you get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and B, you get the bye week. Now, I want to ask you guys, starting with Bob first on this. Do you think they have enough to overtake the Detroit Lions for that top seed?
I think they're definitely comparable to the Lions. The Lions have played good football. I would say right now they're the best team in the NFC, and you could make the argument that they're the best team in the NFL. They had a very strange win last week against the Texans, down big at halftime, came back, uh, won the game the week before, so that gave them a win at Houston and at Green Bay in the last 2 weeks. And you look at three of their last 4 weeks. They've won at Minnesota, at Green Bay, and at Houston. And then in between there, they had a rout of the Titans who aren't very good at home. They're obviously a very good team. The Aiden Hutchinson loss, tough, weakened them for sure, but they did go get Zadarius Smith at the trade deadline. Uh, I think we're about to find out, a whole lot more about the Philadelphia Eagles right now because starting with the Commanders, this 5 game winning streak has come against teams that are combined 15-35. Uh, and the thing that's impressive about it is that most of those 5 wins have they've dominated the game. It hasn't always been a dominated score, but they in those 5 games it's nearly a 2-1 advantage in yards in those games. So they've really handled the opponent very well. But now you're going to get the Commanders who are 7-3, the Rams who are 4-5, but a decent team, and that's on the road. Come back with the Ravens, and then you get the Steelers and Commanders again. When you get through that stretch of 5 games, we're going to have a really good idea of what the Eagles are. But as they sit right now, this the biggest surprise of all to me, I think we all thought they were going to be a very good offense because of all the weapons they had, and they have been for the most part a very good offense. Number 7 in the league in points, six in yards. But this defense, a year ago, this defense was 31st in points allowed and 31st in passing yards allowed, and the secondary was a disaster. And remarkably, it's the number 5 defense in points right now, and that's a little deceiving. In these last 5 games, they've given up 10 points. If you the defense has given up 10 points, if you take away the return touchdowns they've allowed, second in yards allowed overall in the league. This defense makes you say, yes, they can compete with the Lions. If but we'll have definitely have a better idea in the next after this stretch of 4 or 5 games.
And what do you think, Cayden?
Yeah, I think the Eagles, have shown over the last 5 weeks. I know the opponents haven't been great, but I definitely think they'll be in the mix for the number one seed. You look at this tough stretch coming up, and it is tough. I mean, Commanders, the Ravens, the Rams, the Steelers. We're gonna find out a lot more, and there might be some losses mixed in here, which will, probably hurt their chances a little bit to overtake the Lions for the one seed and get home field advantage. But the Lions have a tough stretch at the end of the season, playing the Packers in the first game in December, then the Bills, and then the line, and then the 49ers at the end of December, and then the Vikings. So they have a tough stretch to end the year. Uh, yeah, I think they have a good shot. You look at these two teams in comparison. I think the Lions have played better overall this season, but the Eagles are starting to put it together. And when it comes to the rosters, I think the Eagles have more talent, especially on offense. This Lions team is really run heavy, and they're good at it. I mean, but you saw the Texans kind of slow down the run game, and once they did, they made that a really, really interesting game. The passing offense for the Lions wasn't really working because of that. I mean, look at Jared Goff, throwing 5 picks. Like, I think the Eagles have more on offense. So if you shut down, someone like Saquon Barkley, you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Like the Lions, I don't know if they had that necessarily. They had Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams back, but I feel better about this Eagles offense and the defense. The way it's been playing, like Bob said, they've looked like one of the best defenses in football. These names that maybe weren't household names before the year, like even among casual NFL fans like Cooper DeJean and Quentin Mitchell and the Kobe Dean and Zach Ballin, like all of these guys look like emerging, stars or borderline stars in the NFL. And Vic Fangio is a really good coach. So I would say, yeah. I mean, I think they're comparable. I think the Eagles might be just as good as the Lions. And going back to the first 4 weeks of the season, it might look like there was a little bit of overreaction to how the Eagles played because it looks like they're figuring things out. And if it comes down to just on paper and just the belief that I have in the individual talent of between these two teams, I would probably lean with the Eagles. But maybe the biggest question mark is whether you believe in Dan Campbell or Nick Sirianni more, and maybe that'll make the difference when it comes to the end of the season and when it comes to the playoffs that they face each other. But right now, I think you got to feel good if you're the Eagles for your chances to get the one seed.
It is crazy when you look at it in terms of who the Detroit Lions have remaining, and it's crazy to even think about even talking about them potentially having a one seat now. With the Vikings, you don't know what's going on with them if Sam Darnold ever snaps back into reality and plays like he did earlier in the season, or is this a Sam Darnold old that we're going to be seeing? The 49ers could very well be playing the old 40, becoming the old 49ers. We know how well they do in the second half of the season, so they're playing well. The Bears, so much for that. Yeah, I don't think that's happening. We saw it happen here, and the Bills are tough. They got the Packers again too. So there's a lot of games that are there, and the Eagles have an equally tough schedule. So do I think it happens? Yeah, I don't know, but I do. I will say this: whoever winds up with the one seed will be representing the NFC, and because and in the Super Bowl, because you look at these teams and the way they play at home. Yeah, they're going to win. They're going to win that. So it's imperative for the Eagles to finish with the top seed. Now, switching gears, we're going to go look at the defensive side of the ball. And something of note was that Jalen Hunt outsnapped Bryce Huff last week against the Cowboys. And some people could say that, it was some of those snaps came when the game was out of hand. I was like, no, Hunt was seeing the field earlier on than Huff did. Although Huff did finally get a sack and it's the strip sack, that was big for him. Kate, I'm going to go to you with this one. Do you think that Hunt will continue to outsnap Bryce Huff?
Yeah, I'm not sure. This has got to be the weirdest situation. Yesterday, Vic Fangio was asked about it again. I know people have been asking about Huff the last few weeks, and the Eagles keep mentioning the wrist injury that he suffered. And Vic was talking about how he basically has a club on his hand, and that his explanation was that he'd rather have the healthy guy out there on the early downs, which I understand to a degree. You want a guy who's healthy playing more snaps, but they're still playing Bryce Huff a little bit, which makes me think I don't know if my mind is if he was like significantly injured and you felt like he couldn't do the job, why not just make him inactive? Especially if you're putting him, you know, at his own risk of suffering even worse injury. I don't understand the situation. I do think the Eagles have been disappointed with Bryce Huff. I know Nick Sirianni keeps saying it that he believes in Bryce Huff, and I know maybe Vic hasn't done that as much. He's been a little more blunt and honest about just where he's at currently. And but I don't know. This is where they paid Bryce Huff a lot of money. So if Bryce Huff is fully healthy, and let's say this injury is the thing that's holding him back, when he does take off this club off his wrist, I would expect him to play more snaps than Jalen Hunt. I think we've seen some flashes of Bryce Huff. We saw it with against Terrence Steele, where Terrence Steele kind of overstepped and got off balance, and Bryce Huff took advantage. He got a strip sack against the Cowboys. I think we've seen him play better since the bye week. Probably not what you paid for, and I'm sure they're still disappointed from that sense. But I still think he could be an impactful rotational player. He's a more proven NFL player than Jalen Hunt. He's had more success than Jalen Hunt, and when it comes down to the end of the season, these next 2 months, he still has an opportunity to make a big impact. So I'll say if he's healthy, he'll play more than Jalen Hunt. But this injury thing and how they're approaching it just seems to be kind of a mystery. And who knows? Maybe they're done with Bryce Huff. I don't know. I think that would be kind of crazy just after 10 weeks. But we'll see what happens here. But it's been one of the oddest things of the year. But they should play Bryce Huff more over Jalen Hunt because they paid him, and two, he's more proven.
Cool. And Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, according to Pro Football Focus, Bryce Huff just played his best game. Now it was 12 snaps, but he had a 93 point. He had the highest defensive rating on the team. Again, 12 snaps, but he had two pressures. Um, I've been as critical of Bryce Huff as anybody. I pointed out going into last week, he had the same amount of pressures as Hassan Reddick did in 2 games with the Jets. I still think the Eagles, it's going to come back to this if the Eagles prove to not have enough pass rush, if they don't get to where they want to go, and the pass rush is an issue as to why they don't. That's going to be a storyline. Why didn't you keep Hassan Reddick, over Bryce Huff if Bryce Huff doesn't rebound here? But let's remember that we hear this all the time from Vic Fangio. What do you got to do to play more? You got to play better. I mean, Vic explains things in very simple terms. You play better, you play more. Basically, is the way he puts it. And in his limited snaps last week, he played half as many as Jalen Hunt. Hunt played 25, career high 25 for him. But Huff played better. The thing we don't know, I guess, is how severe this wrist injury is. He did it at the start of in warming up a couple weeks ago. That's the really weird part. We just don't know. Like, okay, if it's so bad that he can't really get on the field, and he's getting on the field as seldom as he does, why are you playing him at all? But I think before the season's over and as the weeks go on here, we're going to see more of Bryce Huff than Jalen Hunt. And again, if he can play the kind of game he played on 12 snaps last week, he can show the pressure. I mean, he was a limited uh, player with the Jets, and the Jets still got a lot out of him. They got 10 sacks out of him last year. Um, I'm sure Vic Fangio would love that formula right now where, this guy, even if he doesn't play as much as Brandon Graham or Nolan Smith, and definitely not Josh Sweat, who plays more than any of them, if he can come in and contribute the way he did with the Jets, both Vic Fangio and the Eagles would be thrilled to have that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's something that'll be a monitor for sure going out here because you put a lot of money in the investment in that, but also this team is really high on Hunt, and I'm just shocked the fact that we heard so much throughout early on this year in the off season that this was basically going to be a red shirt year for Hunt, a guy who's a converted safety that's playing an edge rusher, and now we see him getting that quick burst off the edge and playing so well to the point that he's out snapping. It's definitely something to monitor from here on out. And we know it looks like how important he's going to be for his future for his team. Hey, maybe does he do well enough that the Eagles think about moving on from off at the offseason? Just so many storylines in terms of that we're going to continue to monitor as the season progresses. But now it's going to time for our Inside Slant segment, where these guys are going to have basically something that caught their eye during this short week that they think that is going to be important for the upcoming game, and then they're going to give their thoughts on this too. So, Bob, I'm going to start with you. What's your Inside Slant?
My inside slant is just something to look for and something I asked a couple guys about yesterday. I you know, if we put together um, storylines about this team through 9 games, right at the top or at least near the top would be the play of the two top rookie draft picks. Quinyon Mitchell might be the best outside rookie corner. I think he has been the best outside rookie corner in the NFL through 9 weeks. And right behind him, he came in after the bye week as a starter. Has really, and that's really when the defense really started to become a dominant unit. Is Cooper DeJean. Now the thing for me to watch for with these guys, um, 9 games into the season, 10 weeks into the season. In college, this is when your season is pretty much over. You might have a couple more weeks left, and then you're going to have a week, like a month off before you play in bowl games and or the college football playoff, whatever it is. But it's a big test the second half of the season for rookies. And I talked to both Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell yesterday. They both said they feel great. They both said they picked the brains of veteran guys as far as how to keep their bodies fresh. Big test for him this week. Cooper DeJean said, "I've never played a game on this short of a week before, this short of a comeback." You know, to see how they survive the test of a full NFL season is just something for me to, and I think everybody to watch here. If they can play the way they played in the first half of the season, Cooper obviously hasn't played as much as Quinyon, but if they can play the way they played in the first half, the Eagles got something special going here with those two guys.
Nice, cool. Cayden, what's your Inside Slant?
Yeah, I think the thing that caught my eye most on Sunday, and it caught my eye yesterday during Vic Fangio's press conference, was talking about how they ended up, bringing in Zach Bond, who's having arguably an all-pro season at the linebacker position, coming out of nowhere after being pretty much a backup outside linebacker, edge rusher type with the Saints. But Vic talking about how Howie Roseman did his own evaluation in the offseason and came to him first, bringing up Zach Bond, telling him that he thought this guy could be a backup outside linebacker and a special teams demon for them. And then Vic watched the tape and he was like, no, he's an inside linebacker. He got that feeling after watching just some of his movement ability. And look, it's worked. I mean, who would have thought coming into this year that Zach Bond would arguably be the team's best defensive player? It wasn't even like before the spring and OTAs when it became more clear that the Eagles liked him and he was getting first team reps. I don't think anyone could have predicted that he would have been a starter for sure. And if he was a starter, that he would have been a really good starter. But Zach Bond forcing 2 fumbles, recovering a fumble in that game, having some big stops in that game as well. The interception last week against Jacksonville, and just consistently through the first 10 weeks, he's been a really good linebacker. And we talked about this team last year and just how bad the linebacker play was for most of the year with Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham and having to bring in Shaq Leonard, and it just crippled this defense. They weren't very good. I mean, honestly, they were terrible because the linebacker play was pretty atrocious for the most part. And you look back to 2022 when they had stable linebacker with TJ Edwards, the Eagles were one of the best defenses in the league. And I think if you make the comparison between the two, I think Zach Bond has arguably, I mean, maybe he's been a more impactful player than TJ Edwards. And I think the fact that they found him for a 1-year deal with $1.6 million with little incentives after that, I mean, not paying him too much money this year to get the linebacker play that they have had, that they have gotten from him, has really transformed this defense. And I think it's going to continue to get better. And he talked about it. Nick Sirianni talked about it. I mean, he's getting more comfortable each and every week. And this defense is the number 2 defense in the league right now, the number 1 defense since week 6 because of the linebacker play with him and Dean. And he's the one leading it. He's the better of the 2 linebackers. He's versatile. He can also provide some pass rush. He's been one of the best finds that Howie Roseman, I think, has ever found. And a lot of it probably credit goes to Vic Fangio for putting him in the position to succeed. But I think Zach Bond's development over the next 8 weeks will be something to watch. And like, he's a serious all pro candidate. I don't know if he'll get it because he's not the biggest name in the world, but he's playing at a level that not a lot of linebackers are playing in this league, other than like Fred Warner and a couple of the other top guys. But Zach Bond, he's one of the best linebackers in the league. And who would have thought that, back in May?
Nice, nice. Well, mine is going to be, it involves the offensive line and involves Jordan Mailata and Fred Johnson. And my Jordan Mailata, as we all saw at first, I'll be honest, I thought he was done for the year. The way he was down and the way he needed help off the field with that hamstring injury, I thought I thought he was done. And the fact that the Eagles opened up his practice window, or 21-day practice window, on Monday, and he's getting close to returning is crazy. I was speaking with somebody about that situation in terms of that. They thought that if it was Sunday, if the game's coming up was a Sunday, he's definitely was going to be in. Now it's a Thursday. There's a smaller window for him to play, but the fact that he's full participant in estimated walkthroughs, because they're not obviously not practicing being in a short week, but the fact that he's a full participant in both of them, is trending as if he's going to be playing. So that's a big key to have him back on that line. You got your full offensive line back. You got him back next to Landon Dickerson, and the two of them play really well together. Obviously, with especially in the run game, good luck trying to stop those with those two guys coming at you on a zone blocking scheme. And you got Saquon Barkley going right behind that. But also, you got to tip your hat to Fred Johnson during that time. Johnson, it's a tough ass. You facing Brian Burns, Josh Hines Allen, Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons, what have you. This could have been another Winston Justice situation where for those who may not remember, back when he was back in like the early 2000s, he got boat raced against the Giants and I think they had a career high, it was an NFL record, if I'm not mistaken, or very close to NFL
12
record
sacks.
sacks. When they,
12 sacks. I was there that night.
Yep, it was
I remember,
bad.
I remember the lead to my game story. The Phillies had finished their miracle comeback against the Mets that day, and then I had covered the Phillies for many years, obviously, but and then the Eagles went to what was then Giant Stadium, I guess, and laid an egg where Donovan was just crushed all night long. It was a night game, Sunday night game, and my lead was something like the Phillies triggered the party in the afternoon, and the Eagles made sure you didn't have to wait till morning for the hangover.
Yeah, it was a bad
That was
night on
ugly.
that.
It was really the game that for the Giants had triggered. They had been struggling on defense, and Spagnuolo was their new defensive coordinator after laying an egg as the head coach with the Rams. And from that point on, the Giants' defense was a dominant defense. Like they just kind of figured things out, and that was the game where they did it.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was craziness, and it could have turned into that. But Fred Johnson held his own, and he was able to do well. And now the Eagles not only get that back, but they return back to the depth they have in case something does happen, and if there's another injury down the line, which you hope it doesn't happen, but they do that. So it's something I'm definitely watching. Definitely something to keep watching and leading up to the game time. They have until Thursday at 4 p.m., which is one of the, I guess, if you're a fan of the whole competitive advantage thing, I guess that's good for them that they can wait till that long. For us in the media, yeah, we want to know. We want to know. We want to know. So let's move on to the next segment, the run pass option. For those of you, as you guys already know, our loyal listeners, we thank you very much again for continuing to listen. But you guys already know that I'm going to ask these guys a question. I'll give these guys a statement. If they agree with it, they'll run with it and give their reason whys. If they don't agree with it, they'll pass it and give their reason why. So we're going to go with this first one here, and we're going to turn to the Eagles' opponent coming up tomorrow night. We're recording this on a Wednesday. I'll go start with you, Cayden, on this one. Jayden Daniels will be the best quarterback in the NFC East in 2 years. Are you running or are you passing?
This is tough. This is one I like. I was 50-50 on. I'll pass. I'll pass with it, and this is why. And there's nothing to do with Jayden Daniels because I do think there's a decent chance that he could become the best quarterback in the NFC East because he's had a spectacular rookie season. I mean, he's arguably had one of the best rookie seasons of a quarterback in history. 9 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He's dangerous with his legs. He's operating a Cliff Kingsbury offense. It's not easy to operate with great efficiency, and he looks the part. But saying that, Jalen Hurts, I know the first 4 weeks were rough with the turnovers and all that, but since week 6, Jalen Hurts has looked like one of the best quarterbacks in football. I've seen it in 2022 when he finished second in the MVP vote. I saw it last year through the first 10 games before the offense broke apart. He was still pretty good. I've seen Jalen Hurts, be a top, pretty good, top 10-ish quarterback for the last, 3 years. I've always seen it from Jayden Daniels through, 10 weeks. So it's hard for me to say Jayden Daniels will be the best quarterback in the NFC in 2 years. We saw CJ Stroud have an amazing rookie season last year. Now we're seeing him struggle a little bit more where he doesn't, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he's looked rough. Threw 2 picks against the Lions. You look at his passer rating over the last 2 weeks, 64.2, 59.2, and 2 losses for the Texans. So quarterbacks who have looked good as rookies have regressed before. So it's just saying that I just want to be a little, cautious before I claim Jayden Daniels is definitely going to be the best quarterback in the NFC East in 2 years. Definitely has the potential to be, but we've seen with quarterbacks, a lot of it is situation. He could continue to get better, but if Washington doesn't make right decisions in a few years and the team somehow regresses, we could see Jayden Daniels regress. And look, that's a part of it as well. Jalen Hurts is surrounded by A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and they're both locked up for a long period of time. And Saquon Barkley in the offensive line is primarily young, other than Lane Johnson. I just believe that Jalen Hurts is in a better position. So I just don't want to claim that Jayden Daniels will be. But Jayden Daniels has been incredibly impressive. And if 2 years he's the best quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's a tough question.
Yep, that's why I love him. That's why I love doing these things. Bob, are you running or are you passing with it?
Well, I'm going to before I declare, I'm going to just how to go through that whole thing without even considering Daniel Jones or Tommy DeVito or Cooper Rush. I mean, or Trey Lance. I mean, come on, you don't mention any of those guys.
Shador Sanders.
They could be diamonds in the rough that just hitting under the sand right now. All right, yeah, I'm going to pass because I think Jalen Hurts is still going to be the best quarterback in the NFC East because for one big reason that Jayden or Cayden just mentioned is he has the most talent around him, and I think Howie's going to keep that. We know he's going to have that talent around him in 2 more years because the only guy that's probably going to be gone in 2 years that could be gone in 2 years of that bunch is Dallas Goedert. He's going to be a free agent by then, but I just think Jalen's going to have that talent around him. Jalen has played exceptionally well. He's got his faults, but one of my problems with people when they look at Jalen Hurts is they tend to always look at his faults and never look at his strengths. And one of his strengths we saw on that touchdown to Dallas Goedert last week against the Cowboys is, he doesn't let anything bother him. He was sacked 5 times, 5 times in the first half, and and had another, had Overshown coming at him for a 3rd time, and he just calmly sidesteps him, throws the ball to, he never lets stuff bother him on the field in terms of he just, it's been the big debate forever when Jalen is going bad. Well, the way his persona, his personality, is a detriment to him that, he doesn't let people in and he doesn't show any emotion, but when they're winning, it's an obvious positive for him because he just moves on from things. Jayden Daniels had no doubt had an impressive rookie season, but he's coming off a game which he was 17 for 34, worst of the completion percentage of the year, 50%, Worst passer rating of the year, 68.5%. Probably the best defense he faced all year in the Steelers. Still had a chance to win the game. But it's 2 weeks 2 weeks before against the Bears, who also have a very good defense. They have their issues, but also a very good defense. 55% of his passes, through a touchdown in that game. In his last 4 games, he's only got 3 touchdowns thrown. But he's got his legs. He's going to be in a conversation with Jalen. There's no doubt those two guys are the future of the NFC East at the quarterback position. Again, we didn't mention Dak Prescott either, and for good reason. But yeah, it is a great question. It's your best toss-up question of the year, or run pass. I'm sorry, best run pass question of the year, Chris. And it's a tough answer, but Jalen to me is still going to be the best quarterback.
Well, thank you. And two, I kind of have a feeling Dak may not be there next year, even though he signed that extension. March 17th, that's all I'm going to say.
All right.
Watch that date.
Good point, too.
Watch that date. Thanks. Next one is going to be a little bit different. It's going to focus on the defense that we have now. Bob, sticking here with you. The Eagles secondary will hold Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin to under 100 yards or less. Are you running with that or are you passing?
I'm going to pass with that because he's clearly the Commanders' number one target. He's been targeted 66 times. Next closest is Zach Ertz at 54. Our old friend Zach Ertz. We're going to see him this week. And he's got 47 receptions. Next closest receiver is 25 receptions. They got rid of Jahan Dotson, thinking that they had might have a better number 2 option than him this year, but they really haven't. One really hasn't developed for Jayden Daniels this year. At this point, his number 2 option has been Zach Ertz. McLaurin has, I think, that totaled up 400-yard games in his career against the Eagles, and always has been a thorn for the Eagles, and mostly because he's a terrific receiver. He's only been to 1 Pro Bowl, but this guy, he might be. I would argue that he probably is the most underrated wide receiver in the league. He's already had 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. As a rookie, he had 919. Already at 711 for this year. He's going to have a 5th straight 1,000-yard season. This guy's one of the best in the league. I'm going to run with him over 100 yards this week, but I still don't think it's going to be enough for the Commanders to win. But I do. I just respect Terry McLaurin a ton. I think, and let's remember all these bad years, all these good years he had with really bad teams, and he's on a good team now, and he's on a pace to shatter all his personal records for a single season. So, great player, really good player.
Nice. Cayden, what are you doing? Running or passing?
Yeah, this is another tough one, another good one, Chris, because Bob makes a good point. Terry McLaurin is a very good wide receiver in this league. He's been really underrated. He's played with bad quarterbacks, before Jayden Daniels came in for the majority of his career, and he's always been productive. And like Bob said, he's always been productive against the Eagles. He's got 711 yards. He's on track for 1,000 yards, 15 yards of reception. He's a heck of a football player, and it would be tough to run with it, but I am going to run with it because primarily he lines up on the left side, and that's across from Quinny Mitchell. And I have confidence in Quinny Mitchell. I've seen him go against Jamar Chase this year. I've seen him go against Malik Neighbors. I've seen him play against many good wide receivers this year and not give up a lot of yards. And he's been a super successful player. And I get it's a tough matchup, but Quinny Mitchell is quietly becoming one of the better cornerbacks in this league. And I get Terry McLaurin is going to have some opportunities there one-on-one, but I'm a believer in Quinton Mitchell, and I think in that battle, he's going to get the best of Terry McLaurin, and that's high praise for the rookie. Maybe I'm being a little too optimistic for that, but I think Quinton Mitchell is going to prove on Thursday that he's one of the best corners in this league. That doesn't mean Terry McLaurin won't do anything. He still will finish maybe with a touchdown, get 60 or 70 yards, but I just don't see him going for over 100 against this defense.
They call him Scary Terry for a reason, so we're going to see what happens with him. He's a really good player, and Yeah, they got their hands full with trying to slow him down. Now we're going to go to our 2-minute warning section. With the 2-minute warning section, I'll give these guys a statement. They'll have 2 minutes to answer it. If they do it within time, they'll be safe. Nothing happens. If they don't do it within 2 minutes, they'll hit a whistle, and then I'll kind of probably make fun of them. But who knows? All right, guys. I'm going to start with you, Cayden, and I'll start. This is the question: if you could extend one pending Eagles free agent, who would it be and why? Your time starts now.
Yeah, this is easy to me. It would be Zach Bond in a heartbeat. I already talked to him about him earlier in the podcast, how I think he's having an all-pro season. He's really changed the way this defense has played. Just the consistency that he's provided in the middle has helped the defensive line. When Jalen Carter's getting double teamed or Jordan Davis, he's able to clean up some of that stuff and get through the gap and make tackles in the backfield. He's helping the secondary. He's really changed the overall state of this defense. And Vic Fangio talked about it in training camp. He's talked about it in the regular season how important linebacker play is in his system. He's brought up guys like Roquan Smith and other Navarro Bowman, guys that were really a core part of his defense. And without, he's mentioned once the fullback disappeared, like linebackers, elite level linebackers are needed for NFL defenses to be successful. The Eagles didn't get elite play in 2022, but they got very good play and they were a good defense. And I know the Eagles don't typically value paying linebackers. That's why they let TJ Edwards and Kaiser White walk. But I think with Vic Fangio here and the way Zach Bond has played, I think Howie Roseman might change his mind this offseason and give Zach Bond a long-term extension. He's young. He's only 27 years old. And with the way he's played this year, why not? Why can't he get better? And I think he will over the next few years. And the Eagles found a gem, and they found one of their best players on this defense. And the fact that he's not a huge name, maybe you don't have to pay him 12 mil a year, but you could get him on a reasonable 3-year contract, and he's a big part of your defense going forward.
28 seconds left. Good job. No, I shall not make fun of you. You are safe. Congratulations. Now it's on to you, Bob. Same question. In terms of if you could extend one Eagles player pending free agent, who would it be and why? Your time starts now.
It's a great question because there are some interesting free agents on this Eagles list. We've got Josh Sweat. I think he's having a really good year. Nick Sirianni gushed about him a couple weeks ago. This is not he would only play here, but Brandon Graham suddenly is talking about maybe one more year. Who knows? He wouldn't be my number one guy, but fascinating name on the list. Here's another fascinating name is Mekhi Becton. Done a great job moving from tackle to guard for the Eagles. You got Rick Lovato, the long snapper. You got to have him. He never makes a mistake. No, but seriously, you got a Fred Johnson who's been vital to this offense's depth. Isaiah Rodgers, who knows, how much time Slay has left. He's done a great job filling in for Slay. Some great names on this list of free agents of guys you might want to keep. But I agree with Cayden ultimately that Zach Bond is the guy you want to keep. He's just been lights out as an inside linebacker. A great find by Howie Roseman and a great decision by Vic to keep him, to play him in the middle. It wasn't just Howie saying that. His old coach Dennis Allen was saying this guy's an inside linebacker, or this guy's an edge rusher and a special teamer, not much more than that. Dennis Allen has since been fired. But the interesting thing is going to be how much do you pay the guy? And I think maybe Bobby Okereke got a $4 and $40 million with the Giants. That might be the number.
Wow, you just got in and that. You just got in. It's like, I was ready to go. It's like, okay, ready, 1, 2. You got it. You got it. Bravo, good job.
And how many Eagles free agents did I name in the process?
Yeah, that was impressive. Yes,
I'm claiming victory this week. Definitely claiming victory.
If this was Whose Lines Anyway, I'll give you 1 billion points just for whatever. Yeah, that too. See, I think I look at that and I was thinking about this, and I was looking at. I'm not on the clock, obviously, so I'm going to use just like a few seconds on it. I think the name to watch. There are 2 names to watch: Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. I wonder with with them drafting Jeremiah Trotter Jr., if that's they'll think that they can put more money in the line. And we know how this team thinks about building along the lines. If that's where a lot of the money goes, they've been backed into, what have you, you can do that as well too. I wonder if that's where the money goes and Bond walks, because I think he's going to get offered a lot. Somebody's going to overpay for him, and I think they'll try to take the comp pick in terms of that. But
Would you
I,
do
I would
four?
love to see him back.
Would you do 4 and 40?
Nah, I can't. I
21,
think
21
I,
guarantees.
if you get an AAV of about 8, I think the Eagles might acquiesce and say, okay, yeah. I think they're going to go 6.5, and then say, we tried, move on. And then they go that. I'd love to see him back. I really would. I just, somebody's going to offer him stupid. And in terms of John Milton, the Phillies owner, somebody's going to offer him stupid money, I think. I really do. I really do. Now, here we go. We're on to our last segment here is the overtime question, where we try to go a little bit off the beaten path, some stuff like that's not necessarily football. It can be, cannot be, but we just look at this. And in terms of streaks right now, the Eagles are currently in their winning streak. And I just want to ask you guys, too. I'll start with you, Bob, on this one. When you look at that, what's the most impressive streak that either in sports or elsewhere that you think is like, wow, this really stands out? And you know what? I'm gonna put a special caveat to you because I know you're a baseball guy. I'm taking DiMaggio off.
Yeah, DiMaggio is not my streak anyway.
All right, good.
Um, I actually have two and they're both basketball. The UCLA college basketball winning streak that was ended by Notre Dame. Bill Walton was on that UCLA team. I believe Adrian Dantley was on the team. I'm not positive about that. I remember watching the game. I was a kid, a young kid, and Notre Dame ended that streak, and then they had to go play them again uh, following like 2 weeks later. That would be number two on my list. But number one on my list is the Lakers' 33 game winning streak, 1971-72 season. It was, and I was really young then. I was 8 years old, but I remember, and like at that point in my life, I had no reference point to Wilt Chamberlain being a 76er because I was too young to remember the 67 76ers and or the Warriors when he won with the Warriors. Well, I'm not. I don't think he won the championship with the Warriors, but he played for the Warriors. But I was too young to remember. But to me, like seeing Wilt Chamberlain in those gold uniforms of the Lakers, and they were only really, they were on weekends. But at a certain point, I got really fascinated by that winning streak of the Lakers. Um, and I, I would be playing basketball in my little hallway where my mother would yell at me, "You're going to break the light in the hallway," which eventually I did. Uh, but and I had the headband, the Will Chamberlain headband on. It was Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. I just was enamored with that team. And then probably the coolest part about it is it was ended by the Bucks and was then Lou Alcindor, eventually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, uh, two of the greatest centers ever in the history of the game. Uh, watching Jabbar with his hook shot, and he was the young guy trying to knock off Chamberlain, who I just thought was the most amazing athlete ever. Um, and that win streak to me was just, and it still stands as the longest I think in professional sports, American professional sports. The Flyers had a 35 game unbeaten streak, but it didn't really compare to what the Lakers did. I'll always remember that streak as one of the best ever.
Nice, nice. I like those from there. Cayden, what's your most impressive streak?
Yeah, I know they didn't end up winning the Super Bowl that year, but I think the Patriots going in 16-0 and the way they did it and how dominant they were that season in 2007 is the most impressive streak in my mind. Uh, Arguably the best NFL. I mean, probably the best team in NFL history. You end up losing to the Giants by the David Tyree catching a ball into it on the side of his helmet with one of the weirdest catches and one of the most. I mean, a little bit of luck. Um, Came with that as well. But Tom Brady and Randy Moss and the team, the way they just dominated through everyone, I think that's the best. They had 9 All Pros on that team. They won 16 straight games. Best coach and best player in NFL history. And to win 16 games is incredible. I don't look. The Chiefs are undefeated right now. I don't think they'll go undefeated this season. I think they'll eventually lose. It just speaks to just how good that team was. Because I don't think we'll see that again, at least for a long time.
That was the Giants team that sacked um, Donovan 12 times that beat him. And my memory in being in the press box that night was practice squad players walking out of they were watching the game upstairs in some booth where the press box was, near the press box, and they're walking through the press box and they're screaming 16-1, 16-1.
That's another good streak. That was.
Yours is?
Mine's is way off the beaten path. I mean, way off the beaten path. It's happened since 1776, allegedly, according to legend, but a lot historically it's written down. The Swallows returning to Capistrano. Really off the beaten path. The fact that you can get these same types of birds to go to the same mission is in California over and over again, almost on the same day every single year since 1776. And it's a bird. Yeah, I think that's impressive. I like that as well too, and that's the streak I'm going to go with. I figure I'd do something that's a little off the beaten path. Sports wise, yeah, that is. It's not a. There's some. I think the Patriots streak is nice. I still think that the Dolphins one. I know it wasn't as many teams there. Yeah, that was pretty impressive to go undefeated that whole entire season. And even with the flub with the field goal and your premium. Funny story. I actually used to work with his grandson at a car dealership down in Delaware. So yeah, that was kind of fun. He was a cool guy. So, yes, Sarah. So if you listen to Sarah, I doubt you are, but yeah, it's you're good. You're a good guy. Okay, but yeah, overall, I go with the Swallows of Capistrano. And
They're one cool looking bird too.
yeah, why not? They're still go Blue Jay. Blue Jays and Hawks. They're cool. I like those. Fun times. Well, everybody, I appreciate you guys for listening in to this episode of the No Huddle Show podcast. We'll have all comprehensive coverage of everything that happens with tomorrow's game against the Commanders, a very important pivotal one that will decide who leads the division afterwards. So for Bob and Cayden, I'm Chris. Everybody have a good one. See ya.